Hey, hey, what's up, guys? Happy New Year.
GM, Happy New Year. Happy THORchat New Year.
2023, baby.
Is that your rune price prediction?
Uh, yes, that was exactly what that was, actually. That was a good one. Hey, Pluto, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, guys.
Hey, Happy New Year.
So, I just saw that there's 10 million in the Sabres vault as of today. So, congrats. Damn.
Yeah,
Things
pretty
are
epic.
like going so nice with Sabres.
Yeah, I was predicting 10 million by end of year, but I underestimated how much people go back to the real world for Christmas and stuff like that. It slowed
Yeah,
down for those several days for sure.
yeah, everything's been. I think people. I think it's good too because everyone can just like you can step away without like thinking that you're gonna miss something or like something's gonna happen or whatever. Like I think everyone knows that now's the time to kind of chill because it's back to business in 2023.
Yeah, I think it pretty much like shot right back to the pace that it was at before the holidays. It was just quiet for I don't know 5 days or something like that. There were still some funds coming in, but it was like I don't know maybe a quarter or so of the daily average roughly.
Yeah, it's definitely down a little bit, but I mean, still, it's getting like 15 BTC a day at least in the Savers vault. Uh, like it's still filling up really nicely, which is exactly what you
What's
want to see.
what's the APR on Sabre's Bitcoin right now?
5%,
That's interesting. I wonder
and
why it's
very
not
respectable
lower.
5%, I will say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
Why is it so high though? It feels like it hasn't gone down. It feels like it's been around 5%. Like you would expect that it would be going down as
I do have
more
a
savers
theory
out.
on. So Pluto, by the way, your mic is kind of cutting in and out. I don't know if you're on the road or whatever, but um, I do kind of have a theory as to why that is, and I think it might maybe is. Do you think it's because of other savers deposits? Because savers deposits are normally pretty large, and while swaps are normally pretty small. So like a savers deposit puts a lot more slip into um, it basically gives the yield to the other savers as people are entering in a lot, and there's like a good amount of entries per day, 15 BTC per day, probably a much higher deposit value than would be like swap volume. So maybe that's where some of this yield is coming from. People just entering the savers vaults with larger portions than they would be swapping normally.
Yeah, that's a good call. So maybe once we hit the caps and then we are at the cap, at least for the Bitcoin pool for a few weeks, we should start to see the APRs come down a bit, possibly.
yeah, I'm trying to find it. I think Multipartite had written up a theory or some calculations or something that I don't know if you guys remember what he had said on that, but there was something there.
Yeah, so I wonder maybe it has something to do with the mechanism by which yield gets taken from the regular LPs. So the way I believe this to happen is at the end of every block, the network detects how much rune is swapped between or sorry, how much rune is earned in fees for the LPs in that pool, and then it just takes half of that rune and then it just buys synthetic assets with it and deposits it into the pool. So I believe that's the mechanism by which the savers actually accrue that yield. And I guess the rune BTC price has kind of been holding up the past like couple months, so there really hasn't been any like drawdown in terms of like yield to regular LPs or anything like that. So I don't know. I guess everything's just everything's looking nice. I mean, you really can't complain about 5% in the Savers vault, and I'm sure everyone that's in already is definitely not complaining about 5% on the Savers vault.
Yeah, I guess that also means dual side LP yields have probably been doing much better in the past month or so versus the past before that. given if the savers yields that high, that means the LPers is like double that, which means Bitcoin's like 10% when it was what, like 4% or something.
Yeah, well, it doesn't mean that the regular BTC APR is going to be exactly double. Uh, just because of the way, like the
Right.
way that it's distributed, it doesn't mean that they're going to be double. I don't know. It's I don't know if there's like I have a mental model to like how to think about that yet. I'm like actually what the split is between the two, because it really depends on like how many people are in each, and there's obviously a lot more regular liquidity providers than there are savers at the moment.
Right, right. Yeah, definitely not exact, but I just kind of use that mentally as like a really simple starting point. But I guess that's true. It's less accurate as it was getting started because savers was such a small percentage, and as it's getting higher and higher, then that'll change. So
Yeah, especially as it becomes half the pool, then maybe we'll see it like drop down to be about what half of the savers APR is. Or I guess it would also depend on impermanent loss too, because the regular LP performance is completely determined on impermanent loss, right? So since Savers doesn't experience any impermanent loss, it's like they always will be different, and they always will have some kind of variance to them, I think. Unless there's, I mean, if there's really positive impermanent loss, as in like prices shift more towards Rune than asset, then the APRs go way up on the regular liquidity pools. So the
What's been
dynamics are very different.
I think one of the things that's been interesting is that we haven't seen a ton of dual LPs pulling out and putting into savers. I think I saw, I think I saw a couple examples of that, but it appears that the majority of savers is new capital, which is good.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's something I've definitely been curious about and didn't really have any statistics or anything on, but that's awesome to hear. Yeah, I mean that's exactly what you want to see. We don't want to just see, though I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing if some switch over, but it's not really like a net gain. Whereas obviously new capital is.
Yeah, I'll do a tweet thread actually. I'll do some analysis of the dual sided BTC LPs, and we'll figure out what percentage of those addresses um, show up in the savers vault too. So I'll put out a tweet that says what percentage of the savers are existing dual LPs or are completely new.
Yeah, that would be really cool. And yeah, I've been seeing the same thing where there really hasn't been a lot of current LPs pulling out and putting into a Savers vault. And probably the reason why that is just the Rune exposure on the other side of that. The people who are in regular LP positions want that Rune exposure, and the people who are in the Savers positions want the Bitcoin exposure. So it makes sense to have a completely different class of user that's wanting to be in those types of LPs, and anyone that's switching from like a Rune LP position, like a Rune Bitcoin LP position, to like a Bitcoin Savers vault. Um, they're probably doing that from the risk management standpoint, where they probably wouldn't have entered as big of a position going into a Rune Bitcoin LP just because of the extra risks that are that come with being a dual sided LP, especially the increased Rune exposure. But so it makes sense to see a completely different class of LPs with different risk profiles joining the savers side of things. Really great to see this. And yeah, I know one thing that you mentioned before is that we really want to start seeing, not just the Bitcoin savers, but everything else too grow, because just having Bitcoin liquidity on the network isn't actually going to materially improve anything. If you can just swap Bitcoin to Rune cheaper, that doesn't actually make other swaps any cheaper at all. So seeing this liquidity start to trickle into some of the other pools like Ethereum and like Avalanche are very very necessary. Especially like Avalanche only has like maybe a million in liquidity on THORChain right now. It's like very very tiny and much smaller than it should be, in my opinion. So
Yeah, and those are hugely beneficial for aggregation because, like you said, BTC, I mean, that's just going to help BTC swaps, obviously, but ETH and AVAX, that helps potentially every ERC20 on ETH and AVAX get better pricing as those gas pools get deeper. So, yeah, I saw a lot of big slugs added to ETH recently. I didn't really notice if that was happening with AVAX too, but yeah, hopefully we keep seeing both of those get deeper.
Yeah, having a deeper ETH pool is going to be crucial to the DEX aggregation um, narrative playing out and getting more volume through that. Also, AVAX, I know for a fact that we are integrated with a wallet or a DEX. I forget which one it is. But we're integrated with some wallet or a DEX where like THORChain is not the preferred path because the AVAX pool is not deep enough. So
Yeah,
sorry, there was a dump truck going by. Yeah, I was just gonna say that that's a direct piece of evidence that like indicates that we would be getting more volume, more revenue if we were to get a deeper AVAX pool. What do you guys? How do you guys feel about trading competitions and I thought it'd be cool if we did. I don't know. Some people think that they're pretty shitty, but I think if they're done right, like if we did something where we select like a person like an AVAX saver at random and just airdrop them like 5,000 AVAX within a period. So anybody can like enter to win. We'll just pick like a random saver in a given vault in a given period of time, and then maybe we could also do one where it's like the person who like deposits the most within a specific period of time. But those are like easily you can easily game that kind of thing because someone could just like deposit a bunch and then withdraw it. But I just think like saying, hey, we're gonna choose like 3 savers at random. Anyone who deposits in the next any new addresses that deposit in the next week will be randomly selected. Like I like those kind of things because it just kind of like generates hype and it's a pretty low cost way of doing customer acquisition. I know your guys'
yeah.
thoughts on that kind of stuff.
Maybe the better way to do that instead of like going for liquidity, because liquidity already has its own rewards, just being in the being a liquidity provider, right? But actually, maybe it's doing some kind of incentives on synthetic assets and getting more people trading synthetic assets. Because I mean, going into using THORChain as a DEX, as like a trading tool, synths are the perfect like spot price mechanism where you have that real BTC price and you can sell it for the spot price on THORChain with very quick finality, trade almost instantly. That's why the arbitrage bots already use it. It's like Thor synths are one of the perfect like trading primitives, especially for spot. I think it's because that THORChain has no leverage, which is really what these like the trader like type of trading interface, and people to use synths and people who have not used them yet, to like actually like use them and just see how they work and how fast they are, and how it's very easily basically one-to-one redeemable for the underlying asset. It makes it a very attractive trading primitive, and I think doing some incentivization there to get people who have not traded synths yet to start trading them, that I think something like that might be a good idea.
Yeah, that could be cool. That also makes me think of the perpetuals draft that was written up that people were talking about a little bit, which could be something interesting in the future potentially. I don't know if you guys have thought much about that yet. I've been trying to think about it a little bit, but yeah, also the trading before that, just the trading competition stuff is really cool. That's something we've definitely talked about on the THORSwap side, like at the interface level. I've never even thought about if like THORChain as a protocol would offer that, just because I love the idea. It seems like something that would be like I don't know. We typically there's not really incentivizing particular pools, for example. So it seems like kind of a step away from just like the agnostic, let things be as they are sort of philosophy that THORChain usually seems to have. So I don't know if you mean that that would come from like the THORChain treasury, or how that would kind of be like funded or like
Oh yeah.
governed.
I don't think it could be network native at all. Like it would need to be some kind of like, like the treasury, um, you know, puts up some kind of bounty or, Nine Realms, so some kind of rewards thing there. Like it couldn't be network native, like incentivized trading on the network. It would need to be some kind of like, you know, like we would probably need to organize something like that to make that happen. I mean, we would, like, there's no other way to do it.
Yeah, I think it could be cool.
It's just a fun idea. I don't, some people feel strongly that we don't do that kind of thing,
Yeah.
but
Hey, it's 2023. We're trying out new ideas.
yeah, new year, new incentives, new fun stuff.
It's
Why not?
marketing. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we need to actually start spending money on marketing, smart marketing. But Familia Cow and I have talked about this before. I would love to just see the presence of THORChain ramping up at conferences. I think that could be a really high ROI way of deploying treasury funds. Even just having a treasury subsidize getting us out there to go like talk to people in person. I want to do a lot more of that this year. Is actually going to like speaking at conferences, speaking on panels. I think Eridanis is going to be speaking at something in Miami. Do you know more about that?
Yes, Quantum Miami on it is later this month. I believe maybe the 24th. Quantum Miami 2023, January 25th to the 27th in Miami. And yeah, Eridanos will be there for sure. I think I will probably go out too. And this will, where is it in Miami? I guess just in Miami. Quantum Beach. Collins Ave in Miami Beach. All right. Yeah, so we'll be there to cross chain panel, and they're putting together the panel right now, but I'm not sure if they've announced this yet, but we're definitely going to be out there. So I believe Paul, who just popped in, but he's out now from Edge Wallet, told us he was going to be there, so we thought we would make our way out there too. So we'll be at Miami at the end of the month in about 19 days, 20 days from now. So come say hi if anyone lives in Florida or lives in Miami and wants to. Oh, one thing about this actually is we will have tickets to give away actually to see to go to Quantum Miami. So we'll be doing this in the future, probably in the next like 2 weeks or so. So if people are from Miami, you could DM me, as in DM FamiliarCow, and I can get you tickets to go actually see the panel and go to the conference if anyone is around. So if people are interested, like definitely let me know, because we'll have some kind of THORChain presence there. And I'm also working on just thinking about what events we want to be at in 2023. One of those on the list is ETH Denver in March, and I believe that is the first weekend of March. I was looking that up earlier. So whoever's at ETH Denver, we will also probably be there, and that's from March 2nd to March 5th in Denver, Colorado. So we'll be at least the two, and then if there's other events and people like have events that they would like to see us at, let us know, so that way we can ask for speaking slots and try and get on some panels or maybe get a booth or something. I don't know. We're still trying to figure out this whole event like calendar type thing, but it's definitely something we want to make more of a presence at, because this is just where we're going to meet other people in the industry to get more people building on top of THORChain and using THORChain's liquidity for their own apps. So it's a perfect place for us to be. So definitely come check us out. If you're in Miami, then I hope to see you on the 25th for our cross chain panel. We'll see who else is up there. I'm not sure who else will be up there talking with us.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great way to get the word out. Are there any other like high level marketing sort of ideas other than that you guys are thinking much about?
The integrations is the biggest marketing thing that we can possibly do. So I don't think there's anything that could be bigger than just doing more integrations, which is like obviously like part of the current roadmap. But the in-person events, I think, is going to be important for the next couple of years. Like while we're while everyone's kind of like heads down building it, like the in-person events is going to be the time to connect with people who maybe know about THORChain and don't really know what to do with it, or like how they can use that with their own apps and businesses. So like that'll be the place to do basically more of the groundwork for the integration. So you kind of see how this all, like basically all roads lead to THORChain integrations, where like all of these other things that we're doing, like even these spaces, is just to is so more people like understand what's going on here, and it eventually leads into more applications and apps and businesses integrating THORChain and using THORChain's liquidity and getting new LPs. They all lead to the same place, and that's more big apps using THORChain, which we're definitely going to see in 2023 and beyond.
Yeah, just on the note of conferences, the quality this year and next year is going to be way higher, and it's going to be way more signal to noise than in previous years, when in bull markets they're dominated by all kinds of wacky stuff. You'll largely find that in like bear markets, the conferences actually return to interesting technical topics and real substantive stuff. So there definitely, if you have never been to one, I think like this would be a good year to go check out a crypto conference. And just on the note of like integrations, integrations, it's like it's usually not really like a cut and dry thing. And it takes a lot of like groundwork and legwork just to like get momentum behind an integration. So like, for example, we had definitely been on the radar, as far as awareness of of key integrators, like for quite a bit of time before they actually made the decision to integrate. And so like one of the things to keep in mind is that it's it takes a while to like build up goodwill and with the community and with different integrators, and that's like an ongoing process. So yeah, again, to your point, Cal, like just doing these spaces, being out there in the world, talking, showing people that there's actually like a team behind this, that all those things kind of like add to the ability to land those integrations. So I think that the integrations and like the marketing, are sort of tied in a way. And yeah, we'll keep doing both of those things. They'll be a major focus in 2023.
Yeah, and they're tied, like the integrations and the marketing are tied together, like, and it has to be that way, because there's nothing to market with THORChain. Like you can't just say like, oh yeah, I don't know, you put THORChain on a billboard and say people use it. Like where do you use it? All right, you use it on someone else's app. There's no clear there's no clear way to market that type of product in this type of environment, where without doing these integrations, and because the integrations are the key part of this entire product, right? So as I'm saying, like all roads really do lead to integrations and more apps and companies using THORChain for their own services, which, I mean, anyone that's really talked with us and seen like what THORChain can do and power in their own apps has really come around. But the process do take a while, and people have to have the want to integrate and put their own resources towards that. That's their own engineering time and QA time, and sacrificing other features for their own apps to get to prioritize the THORChain integration. That the trust wallet integration, that was a well over a year of conversations and months of testing until it finally shipped, and it's still not even fully out to all of their users. So like, just I would kind of use that as I use that as a mental model to like think of like how long these like business relationships actually take to come to real fruition. So we just need to continue to sow the seeds that have been planted over the past couple of years, and then while we're doing that, we need to plant a couple more seeds to harvest in a couple of years.
Yeah, I think we're almost downplaying just how quickly that could accelerate too. Like having a huge domino like trust, and then 6 months down the road, seeing how much swap volume they're doing, how much fees they're potentially generating. Then all the competitor wallets see that, and they're like, well, why would we not be doing that? It just, and that's back to what you were saying about integrations really being the best marketing, because if THORChain can just say like, hey, look at Trust Wallet, look how well this worked for them, then every other Trust Wallet, whoever else, it's just such an obvious integration, including dexes too, right? Because single chain dexes start going multi-chain, and then they're getting all this volume, all these new users that they didn't have access to. We're going to get to a point where it's just it's necessary cost. It's just entry, right? So definitely think it's going to just snowball.
Yeah. Has anyone else felt the wind changing a bit after the Trust Wallet integration? Like I do feel like it is like THORChain's being pushed more towards like the center of the zeitgeist, where more people are trying to like people who might have done research on it like a couple of years ago are now just like starting to come back again and just say like, hey, what is actually going on here? I don't know whether it's trust or savers or maybe just a combination of everything, or maybe just bear market boredom, but I don't know. It does feel here like the winds are kind of shifting a bit, like the undertones, at least from my view.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, we definitely feel that. It's playing out across Twitter. It's playing out across, just inbound into our inboxes on Twitter and Discord, and via email through Nine Realms Cap. So it's just like, yeah, it's been crazy, and we're just super excited to be like, meeting the meeting the challenge head on. But yeah, the headwinds have definitely shifted.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like I mean, Chad, THOReau, do you want to talk about Ledger at all? You got any sweet alpha for us? I feel like that's your guys' thing.
A little bit, yeah. So Mogarchy posted a teaser. Maybe we can pin it up, but showing the THORswap app within the Discover section of Ledger Live. Not quite yet, but there's definitely a lot of strides going towards that, which I think is a great first step. Just so people understand, that is different than, say, just going into Ledger and clicking a swap button and having THORswap or THORChain be the invisible background that we all kind of talk about and dream about, and that's definitely where things are hopefully heading. But this stage is like a good foot in the door. I know there's a lot of sort of technical changes that Ledger is doing on the back end to kind of pave the way for that. Changing things with memo sizes, things like that they have to adjust. So that'll be a really cool first step to be able to just go into Discover, where there's other apps and other things you can use, and then to be able to just use THORswap right within Ledger Live will be pretty sweet.
So that like is actually connecting through your Ledger in the Ledger app, making a swap without actually leaving the Ledger ecosystem at all. I mean, it's technically like you guys are running an app, or it'll be like the THORswap app, but they'll still be able to interact with it the same way they do, like with the Ledger integration on THORswap's web front end, right?
That's right. Yeah, as I understand it, it's basically like THORswap running through essentially a browser within Ledger Live. So you're in the Ledger Live app, you're using your Ledger, your accounts can connect and all that, but you're basically opening what looks like the THORswap you already know within Ledger itself. So
that's so sweet. Yeah, and once that goes out, it just seems like that's almost like a stepping stone to them integrating it into they could then integrate the actual THORswap API to do that, like more even in the asset view, which I think that would be like that's what I think we all want. But it seems like this is the natural like first step in building out a relationship between you guys and THORChain and THORswap and Ledger is just having this like Discover app, and then progressing the conversation from there, depending on whatever feedback they get. If they get overwhelmingly positive feedback about that, then they might be more inclined to add that as a native thing into the asset tracker section.
Yeah, that's definitely the holy grail, to just have it just straight up swaps, not have to go through this app sort of section. I just pinned it up if people kind of want to see what that would look like through the discover section. But yeah, exactly what you said. It's a great foot in the door. And yeah, we'll have to do some pushes, maybe perhaps for just existing users to really switch, like use that functionality and kind of give feedback to Ledger and show how useful that is. And that can be a really good proof of concept to show how much use and interest there would be if it was just the normal swap. And then also, as back to pools getting deeper, helping the aggregator, all of that sort of thing, what do they have right now? Just is it Changely or Change Now? I mix those up, but I think they only have one path right now, right? Because I guess they had like FTX or whatever in there. So as those routes get better and better, then it's just going to become a no brainer for them to integrate it for the whole swap, normal swap functionality. That's obviously the goal. That's not what's happening yet, but I think
Yeah.
it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure.
I think one of the things that I would remind anyone who's listening to this call, and to any THORChain ads that well, one of the best ways that you can help support the project is when these integrations do go live, go into those apps and those services that are integrating THORChain and actually use them and submit feedback directly to the people who integrated, because it really helps us when people go into Trust Wallet and open up a support ticket and say, this worked really well, thanks for adding this, or whatever. If that's truly was the case and you had a good experience using THORChain, I think that's a great way to help the project, is like, pay attention when these things land, go actually use them. If it's part of like a product or service that you already use, like I was already a Ledger and a Trust Wallet user before either of these things. And just going in and submitting a support ticket and saying, hey, thanks, this worked great, like giving feedback is a great way to help us. But yeah, super excited to see that land. I hope there's some more traction on that as this new year starts off.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey Oleg, what's up? Are you here to drop some more alpha on that?
Hey guys, Happy New Year. Just wanted to pop in quickly. So we talked about swaps and the THORswap integration. So this is ongoing. So basically we have to, within the Ledger app, like the desktop app, you have to communicate with the Ledger SDK to communicate with the device. So we're kind of testing what's possible, what we can do. But one thing I just want to mention, as much as swaps are nice, I think we as in THORChain, the ecosystem, will also benefit from just the Ledger kind of seal of approval. I do have some friends, I'm still friends with them, who are Bitcoin maximalists or leaning towards Bitcoin maximalism. And so I have this particular friend, so he's a crypto OG, and he's like, yeah, I told him about a single-sided yield for Bitcoin. He's like, yeah, I keep my Bitcoin on my Ledger, and I want to keep it there. And I'm pretty sure for those kind of people, then if it kind of gets the seal of approval or just an affiliation with Ledger, and you can do everything, including providing liquidity on THORChain from the Ledger app, I think that's just great. So I don't want to make any promises, but for that kind of people and that kind of friend, which I'm sure there are plenty of ETH maximalists and Bitcoin maximalists who would feel much more comfortable depositing like Bitcoin or Ethereum or even pair it with Rune, but doing it from the Ledger app. So let's just not forget that THORswap or any integration that gets done in the Ledger app is not limited to swapping, but also to LP.
It's probably even bigger than just the regular swaps, right? Like, especially if you had Savers integration, baked into that. I was talking about this a lot with Trust Wallet, but the same applies for any of these like well-known and trusted brands in crypto. And that's just like by being in these apps, that puts their seal approval, as in like Trust Wallets, Ledgers, like quote unquote seal of approval, past their level of due diligence and their smell test, and saying, hey, we're giving this service to our users. So it's not just them saying like, oh yeah, you can use your Ledger on app.thorswap.finance, but you can use it right in our own proprietary Ledger Live app, right in your own Trust Wallet app, right? Like that is really the types of like acceptance that gets THORChain into the I don't want to say the mainstream, but like more commonly accepted in the space, and actually gaining utilization outside of like our own relatively small bubble, because you're only going to gain adoption from other services that are using it. Like getting users to come to app.thorswap.finance is much more difficult than saying like, oh yeah, this Ledger Live, which probably millions already have installed on their computers, or Trust Wallet, which tens of millions already have installed on their phones. Whatever, I'll just click two things, make a swap, and look how easy that is. But it's a mental burden of going to another site, something that they don't already know and trust, something that's unfamiliar to them, is just much different. So I'm very much looking forward to see these THORChain flows outside of just the very small THORChain space, which we've already kind of created, and that's really where the larger adoption is going to come into play.
Fully agree with that. And also, just going back to what you mentioned, FamiliarCow, about the time to integrate THORChain from Trust Wallet and stuff like that. And I had the privilege to meet Charles from Ledger, which I think he is the CTO of Ledger back in New York. And basically, what he told me is that, yeah, like development work took some time, but regular like approvals and just like the legislation and getting all the required licenses to work with the company, such as FTX, he says it was such a burden. So in my opinion, THORChain getting into Ledger is just inevitable, but also will simplify. So what I'm getting at is the experience of integrating FTX into Ledger was very painful. Not even just the dev work, just like the administrative process. So with THORChain, no KYC, permissionless, here's the code. Yes, it's going to take you some time to understand how it works, but even then, now we're doing it for them. But I just think it's much smoother, and I think all wallets will eventually gravitate towards decentralized protocols rather than centralized option.
Yeah, I think this point is huge. Like people switch over from a centralized exchange to Ledger or Trust Wallet, for example, because of the kind of like the HODL, not your keys, not your coins concept, right? And if those people have just a click here to earn 5%, 4%, whatever it is, yield, and it's still controlled by your same wallet that you already know and are comfortable with, that's just such a huge opportunity. One question I have for all of you guys, I'm curious, is when it comes to yield, there's obviously like a trusting element from the user, right? And with something like centralized yield, obviously people have made the mistake of trusting that. But when it comes to DeFi, it is still the Wild West. And I'm curious, do you guys think we'll see insurance potentially offered by centralized or even crypto native projects for savers, and might that be something that kind of breaks savers out to a more normie mainstream crowd? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
So
I do.
Yeah, this is an interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah. I am super excited to see some insurance products come out. I've only heard like some whispers of some. So nothing like concrete, but these types of things are coming. I think there's interest for sure, and I think people are interested in offering this service. So hopefully we see something bake out of this soon. I don't know if you have more info, Pluto.
No, I think interesting one. Orion, if you wanted to come up and talk about that, I know that those are conversations that you've had with people in the past. We've definitely talked to a lot of people. I think insurance in the DeFi space is really interesting because insurance, like I just don't know how you do it you could do it in a decentralized way, like as a DAO. I think a DAO would be interesting, like a community insurance fund. But then like, what are the incentives for people to actually put money into that? And then another, at the protocol level, there's ways that like we can insure the protocol. But I also think that front ends should, basically buy their own insurance or have their own essentially insurance fund if one of the protocols that they integrate gets popped, or if if for some reason their front end gets hacked and like they lose their users' money somehow, front end should definitely have an insurance as well. But I think unless we're talking about the actual technical risk of a vulnerability, impacting THORChain's sort of core security, which is the churning, the vaults, the pool logic, and all that stuff, which hasn't changed and won't likely change. So really, we're approaching a period where we think that from an actual technical perspective, THORChain can be considered secure. And so at that point, I think that the main thing that we're switching, our focus to on the security side of things is, if there's ways to economically attack THORChain, and if there's ways to exploit savers or synths or lending or any of that stuff to basically have an adverse impact on one or the other. So as we start looking at that, if there's ways that people can attack those products, it would actually probably most likely involve attacking protocol and liquidity, or basically getting protocol owned liquidity to do something that it's not supposed to do, or to somehow try to drain down the reserves so that POL doesn't work anymore. But I mean, these are all sort of things that we've been gaming out and looking at. But I think one of the best, if there was an economic attack surface, it would be via the Rune asset. So somebody doing what they basically did, on Terra, and borrowing up a bunch of the native asset and then dumping it on some pool in order to basically throw it out of whack. Which could then cause other, we're just kind of gaming out all of these scenarios right now, and trying to see what that is. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a lot of circulating capital to mount an attack like that. I'm ranting right now, but I think this is super interesting. So I just think the less circulating Rune there is in supply, and the more of it is actually locked into the network, which we're seeing an increasing trend up and to the right of the amount of total Rune pooled. Right now, we just got to the highest net Rune liquidity ever. So in Rune terms, we're at the current all-time high of TVL in the protocol, which is only making the protocol more secure, because it means that there's less circulating Rune for people to actually potentially borrow, acquire, and attack the protocol in that way. So I think that that is going to be the most interesting thing. And so actually, if you think about it, one of the best forms of insurance is if Trust Wallet were to just buy up 70 million Rune and hold it. That would be a form of insurance, in the sense that you're taking that liquidity, you're taking that Rune out of circulation for anyone with nefarious purposes to be able to acquire and use against the protocol. So it's really, really interesting when you start to think about, how do we scale savings, and how do we scale lending and stuff. It's actually kind of like a two-way. It's kind of in the best interest of the Coinbases and the Trust Wallets of the world to actually buy and hold Rune, not only as a means of ensuring their own users, but also as a means of allowing the caps for savers to scale as well. So it's a super interesting thing, and I think that that's something we need to start doing, is when we talk to these people, is basically convincing them that that's a way they can, that they can help secure the protocol and the product that they're pushing for their users. Sorry, that was a little bit long-winded. I've just been thinking about
Pluto.
this topic.
Yeah, I just want Orion here. I just wanted to hop on and say Happy New Year to everybody, but also just dovetailing into what you're saying. Another way to look at the kind of insurance product is as a security product in some regard. You're collecting a premium, and in order to kind of help protect the network. And one thing that I was thinking about is, if there are folks considering insurance protocols, it's kind of in that DAO's interest to run a validator in order to be able to make halt, which would protect the protect the chain and then also mean that they wouldn't have to pay out because an exploit was prevented. So that's another angle here around getting people aligned around all of this, which I think is a really kind of a compelling thing. And I don't know other chains that are able to do the same thing.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Like I foresee like THORChain evolving to become like a global network of operators, not just 9 realms, but like I would love if this becomes, I mean, and hopefully it does, if this becomes like the de facto, way that people are settling assets across chain on all these major wallets and dexes. Like I would expect that, those wallet teams would be inclined to have, their own security teams monitoring THORChain. And so the more independent parties that we have with eyes on THORChain at all times, the better. And to that point, yeah, having them run their own node so that they can participate in governance, so they can participate in securing the network, so that they can participate in essentially deciding what the outcome of the network is, like what features get added and what types of like the network constants we have set, like the economic parameters of THORChain. All those things should be decided by the people who have the most skin in the game. And I think that wallets and dexes have a tremendous amount of skin in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's like kind of where the direction of THORChain goes, is that it's just a giant decentralized network that's operated by these large, these various like countries and institutions, sorry, not countries, just institutions and companies that have a vested interest in the outcome of THORChain, as well as, the early adopters who were lucky enough to, buy enough room to run their own nodes. So I think like just seeing the demand for people to start to participate and participate in, validate on the network and earn rewards is gonna result in more like professional teams coming about to become node operators.
Yeah, agree 100%. Two points I want to make here. First is that I totally agree that it's going to be the infrastructure providers, like the wallets and the dexes and the centralized exchanges, like Binance, who will eventually be running probably a lot of Thor nodes, because they'll want their own data guarantees and assurances, but also this security end of it. When I was talking to Orion about this at this insurance the other day, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind, which he just brought up, is what is the cheapest way to insure the network? And the cheapest way to insure the network, from what I can think of, is exactly that, by running a Thor node and by hiring people to watch the chain 24/7 and instructing them to make pause if there's anything wacky going on the chain, so that way people can investigate. That to me, that seems like the cheapest way to never have to pay out a insurance bounty for millions and millions of people. And that is also just happens to be obviously the way that THORChain does not get hacked or exploited, or if there is some kind of exploit, then there is people that are always looking into it. And obviously there is like THORSec already, but that is just one team, and they can only do so much. If there's dozens of teams, or even just more teams from let's just say insurance protocol, they start running their own Thor node, they hire people to start going back into THORChain's code base and start looking at it. What's the cheapest way to pay out everybody from a THORChain hack insurance payout? It's going to be just not getting hacked in the first place, by pausing before anything could happen, and by protecting the code before anything can happen. It's all the preventative measures, which is exactly the type of thing that some kind of insurance provider could bring to this network, just by increasing the defensive security posture and just by making it that much harder. So by decreasing their chances to actually make a payout, it just drastically increases the security to the network. So that's exactly why I think a insurance protocol would be so beneficial to THORChain. And it really doesn't take it would take a team of people, but nothing outside of like 15 people to run some kind of venture like that, like at the most. But having that many people securing THORChain is obviously the direction that we want to see the network go, because we want to see the network be secure and remain that way indefinitely. So I think for that reason, like out of anything, that an insurance protocol would be super beneficial, and hopefully we can see one of these come to fruition. I think that's definitely something we should be lobbying for.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and right now the actual reserve fee that is taken by the protocol, and not the fee that's paid to LPs, but the actual protocol reserve fee, it's super low. We could double that, and THORChain would still be the most competitive way of doing cross-chain DEX settlement. So I think until there's meaningful competition, that's also a lever that we can discuss using to basically have the equivalent of a trust and safety fee. Almost every platform that processes transactions has a dedicated trust and safety fee, because it is such a big part of the entire business. I mean, that is your business, right? At the end of the day, we're in the business of securing other people's money and swapping other people's money. It's a huge deal, and we need to, assessing a fee that is specifically for security and operation of the network would not be a bad idea, in my opinion. But there's other things we can do. We can do it like treasury programs. We can have basically independent security analysts that get paid out from basically a trust and safety fee pool in THORChain. So there's a lot of interesting things that we can do around that. This is probably the most bullish part of this project for me, is seeing how this plays out, and how THORChain decentralizes, evolves, and expands, and how how we really step up on the governance side of things as well, and get more people involved in in the direction of it, and get more people that no disrespect to our current node operators, but aren't just amateurs. Basically just have full-time teams with people doing analysis, really looking at our designs and scrutinizing them closely. That's part of the process of decentralization, is getting more cooks in the kitchen. And while that doesn't help on the early phases of a protocol, there's a time and a place for having more cooks in the kitchen, especially the highly qualified people from teams that we're seeing aligning with THORChain now. So I just think that this next chapter that we're entering is one of the more exciting for me, because it just more people and more opinions means more rigor, and more rigor leads to more safety and to better outcomes.
Yeah, great points all around. This conversation is so exciting, and definitely makes sense for it to go this way and scale the security, and having the insurance products too, potentially coming full circle back to savers yields. That's the sort of thing that's going to probably drive savers yields super low, which means that there's tons and tons and tons of liquidity and tons of security, which is really what we want to see. Because why did BlockFi or whoever have 0.5% yield and still have billions and billions in Bitcoin? It's because the users trusted it, which turned out to not be a good move, but they really trusted that somebody was looking after it, right? And there was some kind of assurances there. Classic. So yeah, as THORChain kind of builds that out in a truly decentralized way, and maybe there's some aspects of centralization with the insurance and things like that, then that allows the product to really scale to levels that we can hardly even imagine right now, which is where it gets really exciting.
Yeah, Orion, anything else on that insurance thing, or just anything else that you wanted to discuss? We haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to pop in and just mention that things can kind of dovetail really nicely in terms of alignment of validators and other products that people can build on THORChain. as a validator or DAO or something like that.
So we want to take some questions from the audience.
Yeah, let's see if anyone wants to come up. If there's any suggestions on events that you want to see us at this year, or just general questions, anyone can hit the request button and come up.
I have a quick question in the meantime.
Savers, lending. Yeah, go for it.
For the Nine Realms team, any news or progress? Anything to expect on the BSC front? How's that going?
I think Ursa, one of our engineers, opened the PR for the BSC daemon, and I think that we're going to merge that up as soon as our test validator finishes syncing. I mean, it's still like, I don't know. I don't know that like node operators should. If node operators like losing money, like then sure we can add BSC, but I don't really think that we should add it personally, because it's going to cost like another $1,000 a month to run your node, and it's not going to be making you that much more money. So I just think at this stage, like it doesn't really make sense, and we don't really have like we don't really have clarity on whether nodes are actually right now would be interested in doing that, but I don't want to call another vote again when it's already been voted on. So I'm curious what do you think we should do? Like, I mean, we can add it and we can like push it up, but node operators might be like, hey.
So that was going to be my question is like, could a symbolic vote, and maybe that's too many votes, I don't know, but a vote saying like, essentially explaining what you just explained, like given the economics, given everything, are node operators in favor of doing this now? Because yes, they already voted on that's the next chain, but factoring in the economics, I don't know if node operators are thinking about that. Do they want to just, obviously it makes THORChain better, right? It makes THORChain more useful to more people. So do node operators, are they willing to forfeit short-term gain for, solidifying THORChain as more useful today? Is kind of the question I would have for node operators, like where they stand on that. And maybe that is worth another vote. I don't know, but I'm curious.
I think what we'll do is we'll just post an announcement that says like, hey, unless any node operators speak up and are like explicitly against this, we're just going to move forward with it. Here's how it will like materially impact your bottom line, and then they can decide for themselves. I'm guessing though that most node operators are like, philosophically aligned and just want to like stack as much rune as possible. And like, they're not really worried about like the month to month P&L of running a node. So I think it's more than likely that they probably see Binance Smart Chain as being like a, just like a natural fit strategically. And that when the volumes do ramp up, and if we do get, Binance and, because I mean, like it's a political play, right? At the end of the day, like adding Binance Smart Chain isn't just like a purely like, oh, we think it's going to lead to a ton of, a ton of volume. It could, but it also brings us closer to Trust Wallet and to Binance, which like, I'm not saying that I'm going to single out like any one person that I want the protocol to be closer to. I want us to get closer to everyone who's important in this space. We need to forge strong connections with, and we need to get the support of them. And so like, if it just kind of makes sense to add Binance Smart Chain from my perspective, given, the backdrop of the Trust Wallet integration, given the backdrop of, BNB and, Binance's strength throughout this bear market. So, I think just like from a, just like looking at it purely politically, it makes sense. So, maybe we'll just do that. We'll say like, hey, here's what the, the bottom line impacts are going to be on this. Here's the quick 3 bullets. We think that BSC will, open new routes to, for Binance users, like on-ramping and off-ramping from Beacon Chain to Binance Smart Chain, which is like currently something, that if we prove that we're like a really good bridge, like Binance might just like use THORChain as the official BSC to BNB bridge, right? Like that all of these things are within the realm of possibility, and we'll never really know unless we like do it and put it out there, right? So it's kind of like that's the bet that I think node operators are taking on Binance Smart Chain is that $1,000 a month is an investment into a possibility that could forge a stronger bond. That would be my kind of just like guess as to what the incentive they would be considering is. So yeah, I think we'll go move forward with it, and we'll just ask node operators like if they are like really against it.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's a bit of a gamble either way, because it's like you can't know what the results are gonna be from the onset, but at the very least, you're completely right that it does strengthen other relationships and it can lead to other things that may not be anticipated currently. And I think the obvious thing that you can anticipate is DEX aggregation, number one, and number two would be just the increased strength of the Trust Wallet integration. And people obviously are very used to the Binance ecosystem from Trust Wallet, and BSC is highly in demand there. Currently, we see like 150, 200 swaps a day with Trust Wallet, and who knows like where that could there's no data to know like where it could go if we add BSC. Does that go to 400? Does it go to 2,000, or does it go to 220, or does it stay exactly where it is? No one uses BSC, so like it is a bit of a it's not a clear area of saying like this is exactly where we're going to win and how much we're going to win. Like some type of risk needs to be taken, but it does advance those other relationships. So like I see it as a positive thing. I think it's good though to probably get another temp check from nodes, and then if there's no one dissenting, then we send it.
Yeah, I think we need to get comfortable. Well, and especially when we're talking about like adding, just like a EVM chains or Cosmos chains, since we already have like a functioning and audited chain client. So it's actually like not really a big lift from like a security perspective to vet these new chains. So like we should get more comfortable with the idea of experimenting and adding chains, adding something like Binance Smart Chain, and then coming back and reassessing in 3 months whether we should continue to keep it. Like I don't think that there's anything wrong with adding something, realizing that it's not really working out for you, and then just getting rid of it and shutting down all those full nodes and recouping those costs. Right? It's like we should remember that like THORChain is dynamic, and it can evolve. It can also it can Ragnarok whole chains, and we've done that already with Terra. So I still think Terra is going to end up back on THORChain one day.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you really?
Yeah, dude, I think it is.
Wouldn't surprise me either, actually. Yeah, that's cool you said that. Yeah, I think just one other like very obvious point on it is there's a huge difference between today's volume and potential volume. And if adding a new chain costs a node like 1,000 a month and makes, I don't know, let's say like 100 a month right now, that can flip so dramatically in the future as prices change, as just total activity changes, and like that future calculation is very different. So I'd have to imagine, and just my guess is in line with yours, but I think most node operators are just gigabulls on Rune. They want to see the thing succeed as much as humanly possible, and the 1,000 a month loss on adding a new chain still has so many other, like that alone is bullish for Rune, just adding it, right? And knowing the future value. So it would kind of surprise me. I mean, I'm sure maybe some node operators think that way. Like I don't know what your guys like client nodes think about like their current income versus their just overall like Giga Moon Rune future position. But I'd have to imagine they'll mostly be super down.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Also Binance Smart Chain specifically also gives the out in case Binance wakes up one day and decides to delete their old chain, which is currently the only one that we support. It just makes it that much easier to transition and move on with our lives.
Totally.
If and when that happens.
Now I'm getting bullish about BSC. Let's add it. Let's send it.
Oh, is that easy? All right, let's pump it.
So easy, Pluto.
Oh man. Yeah, no, that'll be sweet. I think you're right. I think it is. I think that for most people that have the cash to run a THOReau, they're not like, pinching pennies. So I think it's yeah, probably a good call to do that.
I mean, you can't lie about the numbers, like on how much volume like PancakeSwap gets. Like, I
Dude,
mean, maybe you can
I
lie
think
about the
if
numbers, but you can't lie about the numbers.
I think if THORChain were in the place that it is now, but it was 1 year ago during a bull market, but we had Trust Wallet integrated, we had all these wallets integrated, like we'd be doing like 200 mil a day. Like the amount that like volume can pick up in a bull market is pretty insane. Like doing like 10 million a day, like right now on some of like the 7 million on like a shittier day, I'm like, damn, dude, it's so much of like volume just has to do with like how much volatility there is in the market. And right now people just aren't trading. Like everyone who's gonna sell is like sold, and people are just holding on. So it's like, the fact that we're still putting up like some 20-30 million dollar days here and there, like is pretty impressive to me. I remember I worked for a DEX in 2018 in that bear market. Like seeing the volume numbers drop below 1 million was extremely depressing. But then a couple months later, it's like you're doing double digits again. So I think the volume numbers that were like comparatively, if you look at like TVL.
Just me, or did Pluto cut out?
Yeah, it's me too. Sorry, I don't know if it's like that for the audience though. Any emojis? Can you guys hear him?
Not seeing
I think
anything. Yeah. Oh, there you are. Maybe. Try to say something? Yeah, not hearing you still.
All right, I think it's a Pluto issue. That's fine though.
Yeah. One other topic is the ILP deprecation vote. I saw that it's at like what 59%. Oh, there's Pluto. I don't know if you want to finish that thought.
I don't know where I dropped off, but I was just saying we are doing comparatively well in the bear market across all metrics, which is great.
100%, yeah, and that's just going to go crazy, when users wake up. Yeah, I was just going to bring up, shifting gears a little, but the ILP deprecation vote. Do you want to speak to that at all, and just like the progress, like where the vote is at, what it needs to pass, maybe even a super quick TLDR for people that don't know what's going on?
Yeah, so nodes have already the vote is almost at 67%. So this one is technically a symbolic vote. There's a different number that we have to plug in, but basically what we said that we were going to do was this proposal was to deprecate ILP after 30 days for new depositors. So anyone who's currently a depositor on THORChain, a dual-sided LP, will continue to earn impermanent loss protection until they decide to withdraw, and they'll still be paid out. They can withdraw once, twice, three times, as long as they don't add to their LP. They'll continue to be protected on their entire deposit in perpetuity forever. So basically, this is only deprecating ILP for new depositors and only after 30 days. So after this vote passes, it'll be 30 days from that time that new deposits will receiving ILP will be closed. So anyone who wants to deposit on a dual LP and get impermanent loss protection should do so within the next month. And I suspect that this vote will pass sometime in the next few days here. So I think it's pretty straightforward what's happening there. There was some other designs floated, like doing deposit protection, which just protects against like the synth leverage from Luvi. And we just decided like all that stuff is too complicated, that we should just be very straightforward about like, if you're using a dual LP, you are basically you're getting the upside, and that's leveraged by synths. So you're basically have dual LPs have like a leveraged position on the directionality of the underlying assets in the pools, and savers don't have that impermanent loss to worry about. So we just decided to make it dead simple and just not do any sort of protection for the dual LPs, just because what we were taking away, which is impermanent loss, we didn't want people to like be confused that what we were replacing it with, which was the proposal for deposit protection, that they would kind of say, oh, it's kind of the same thing. We wanted to be super clear as to like what the risks are as a dual LP, and super clear what the risks are for savers. So that was kind of the motive behind not just doing a straight up deprecation of impermanent loss protection. And so that looks like that'll pass. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big deal. Like it's one of the most important, like, I think mechanisms for people that were dual LPing. So we'll have to see what happens. And I'm particularly interested in seeing what happens with new chains. Like when we add a new chain, who are going to be those first, dual LPers to come in? They've got to be pretty sophisticated and kind of know what they're doing, and properly hedge out their risks or whatever, if they think that whatever they think is going to happen. But it'll just be interesting to see how this affects like the rollout of future chains as well. I see that being a potential change of dynamic.
So actually, while you were speaking, I was just looking into that a little bit, just read your mind a little bit, and I was actually seeing from the current impermanent loss exposure. Obviously, this is just like a snapshot of this exact moment in time, but the newer pools and some of the more shallow pools that we're like talking are kind of like alpha pools. Like they're like very relatively low liquidity, but pretty high traffic on THORChain, so they get like a really nice APR. And I wonder if that is part of the reason why these pools have a total impermanent loss liability of 0 rune. And that's the AVAX pools and the Atom pools on
that's surprising.
THORChain.
That's surprising.
So there's 0 IL liability on both of those chains right now, which is really cool. And like overall for these like more shallow pools, there's like really no impermanent loss at all. Like Bitcoin Cash, it's like 3 rune, like you just round that down. A lot of these more shallow pool, and I think I think the reason for that is probably just how much is actually going into fees and increasing the Luvi and increasing the deposit value to make up for any impermanent loss that might be accrued. Well, for something like Bitcoin, if there's any impermanent loss, you experience the IL, but you're not getting as much yield to make up for it. But some of these like more what I would call like an alpha pool, like something that has like high yield and like fairly high volume and low liquidity, like the AVAX and Atom, both no impermanent loss at all, which I guess means that there are zero liquidity providers in the AVAX pool and in the Atom pool that are experiencing impermanent loss right now on THORChain, which is actually like
That's
pretty
wild.
crazy to think about. So maybe the original assumptions of no impermanent loss after 100 days actually do make sense, but only when you think about it in the context of a lower liquidity pool and not in the context of a very high liquidity pool that doesn't earn as much in fees. So maybe it doesn't actually change that much for a new pool is what I'm trying to say.
Yo, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's awesome. Because yeah, when you brought that up, Pluto, I was like, oh yeah, that does change the dynamic of the early LPs, but maybe it kind of doesn't.
I'm sure this wasn't always the case, and there probably was liability, like at a previous moment. But right now, liability in the network is looking pretty great. The entire IL exposure for protection is it's less than 4 million rune. It's like 3.6. I think the total IL
it was like
protection
7
paid out.
It was like 7 mil last I checked. I guess rune is like overperforming at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, the last couple of weeks for sure. and then whenever Rune outperforms, then just generates yield. That all of that just cushions that IL exposure. So it's like every time that anyone's ever looked and been like, oh man, we're worried about ILP, like it just always ends up going back down. Obviously, that can't continue forever, but I'm just saying, like, for these shallower pools that still see a lot of activity, they're really, like, it really doesn't seem like there's a lot to worry about from the impermanent loss side of things, at least for how productive these pools are right now.
That's pretty sweet.
Performing really well. So, I mean, congrats to anyone in the AVAX and Atom pools, because you guys are probably making a killing right now. I don't know if anyone has any personal experiences in these pools right now, but I mean, just looking at the stats the last couple months, like, you know,
dude, I don't get how, like, I don't get the Cosmos community, man. Like, why aren't people like providing yield for Atom Rune right now? It's 40% APR, and they're like two awesome like Cosmos ecosystem projects. Like, that's yeah.
Wouldn't you rather be earning 500,000% APY on staked Atom and bonded Atom?
Is that really what they're doing?
No,
is that really what they're doing?
Yeah, those guys need to come over and see the THORChain oasis over here.
Dude, it's pretty sweet. Man,
I mean, I'm assuming most people that are like staked into those are probably using some kind of like liquid staking thing and compounding it with another Atom staking. Like that's the type of thing that's going on in these other.
I think the big narrative for Atom staking is people want the potential airdrops, and they're like banking on that outweighing all the yield. I have to assume that's the main reason.
True.
One thought I was having on finishing up the ILP discussion is we were talking earlier about dual-sided LPs, sticking around, not leaving for savers. And I think one reason that dual-sided LPs are sticky is that they have impermanent loss protection. I think it makes sense to take it away for all the reasons that we were just talking about. But do you guys think there could almost be like a FOMO event as that 30-day window closes up, because it's kind of like the sale is ending, like get in now and you'll have protection. I wonder if we might actually see like a bit of a rush of dual-sided LPs to lock that in, and then that would be really sticky liquidity, because that liquidity would want to, they'd be in it for the long haul if they want to lock in that protection.
Yeah. I just realized, guys, block 9 million is going to be in the next like 12 hours. So congrats to THORChain for mining 9 million blocks.
It's a lot of blocks.
A lot of blocks, man.
I just saw that there was 69,420 blocks the next Bitcoin happening. I mean, that was a couple hours ago, but congrats on that, Bitcoiners.
Wow.
Yeah, we brought some people up. Sorry, Green Floyd was up first, so hey.
Hey, hi guys. So I have a question regarding the pinned tweet here of Mogakarki. So I actually use Ledger regularly, and I was very curious as well, excited about the THORChain integration coming up. But I got confused by the photo which is there. So I can't seem to follow why Ledger will use THORSwap for integrating.
Oh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry, it might have been my connection. Sorry.
Yeah, I was hearing you. You can continue.
So my question is, I can't seem to follow why Ledger will be using THORSwap for integrating the THORChain interface. I mean, what exactly is THORSwap providing, which is not really something which people can't connect directly with THORChain? Will they go over a THORSwap API? And that is something which I can't follow. Like, I don't know if this question is to THORSwap team or to you guys, but if any of you can take that up.
Yeah, I can take it. So the first thing, just to clarify, is what you're seeing there. We touched on this earlier, but that phase of the integration is not like the full-on holy grail swaps behind the scenes type of integration where you would just go into your Ledger accounts and just click swap, and THORSwap or THORSwap API or THORChain directly would be one of the paths for swaps. This is within the Discover section, which just allows you to use applications within Ledger Live. So this is THORSwap itself, THORSwap swap functionality coming inside Ledger Live, so those users can just easily open up that app. So we were saying how that this kind of like lays the groundwork for hopefully the holy grail in the future. But why would you want to use THORswap API versus just THORChain directly? The key, the number one thing there, at least in this context, is DEX aggregation. Like I think it's pretty fair to say THORswap is leading in terms of actually doing lots of different contracts for aggregation right now. So a really easy way to see the value of this is to just go onto THORswap, for example, and mock up a swap from, say, Bitcoin to USDT or USDC, like these huge trading pairs. And you'll see that using the aggregation, you get a better output, meaning you get more tokens on the other side for that swap when you're using the aggregator. And that's because the ETH pool is really deep. And everything we were talking about with savers and deepening pools, the more you deepen like the BTC and the ETH pool, that benefits all the ERC20s that are aggregated. So it gives you way more tokens and it gives you more efficient swaps.
So when I go from BTC to, let's say, USDC, so there are probably two swaps happening, right? BTC to ETH and then ETH to USDC, which is a different chain altogether. Like they might not be using THORChain. So that's right?
That's right. So yeah, if you do BTC to USDC just using THORChain directly, there is a USDC pool on THORChain. But the thing is it's not as deep as like the ETH pool and stuff. So if you're using the aggregator, then what you're doing is you're doing BTC to ETH on THORChain, and then the THORswap API is aggregating like 4 or 5 different liquidity sources to see which one at the time and for the size of your swap gets you the most output. So that it could be through Kyber, Uniswap, 0x, Sushi, 1inch. It's scanning all of those and it's figuring out like, okay, which one is giving you the best route, and then it's using THORChain for the BTC to ETH, and then it's using a single chain liquidity source for that next leg, but it's still just in one transaction. So this is like the stuff the average user doesn't even need to know is going on. They just need to know like, oh, I'm getting a good swap rate. So that's kind of the key value I would say it provides.
Also, on top of that, will THORswap will be like applying some 0.3% fees in this API usage?
So in this context, it's basically just the THORswap app itself running within Ledger Live. So as far as I know, it would be the same as just going to THORswap directly. As far as for like a backend hidden API integration, I would just say that that's still to be determined. And, some of these things are negotiated like on a per partner basis. And, but if there is fees, whenever there's a fee taken by THORswap, it still like counts towards THORswap revenue. So as far as VThor goes and things like that, but it's not always necessarily the exact flat rate depending on partners. So.
Right. Got it. Cool. Thanks, Chad. Thanks a lot, guys. That's all I have.
Cool. Thanks, man. K coefficient. Hey.
Hey guys, what's up? This is more a THORswap question, I think, but 2 questions. Once we deprecate the ILP feature, is THORyield, or are there any other dashboards that will monitor impermanent loss for LPs? And what's going on with Atom and Litecoin Trust Wallet issues, Kepler Wallet things? Have those things been restored or fixed? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, you'll still be able to see IL within THORyield, even if it's not showing you like what would be covered or what was it called? The verse hodl thing, what was that called? LP verse hodl. But yeah, I would think you could still see like, how you're performing overall. I would hope it still has that breakdown. I need to check, but yeah, I don't know if I know there were some issues on certain chains and wallets on the THORswap side, and just like through the new year and stuff, like things have been a little slow, but I know that the team's on it. I don't know what has been restored or not. I haven't checked on that, but I would expect any of those little issues to be fixed up really soon.
Okay. Yeah.
And you'll always be able to check the impermanent loss yourself. All you need to do is just figure out how much your deposit would be worth if you just kept it as Rune and Bitcoin, for example, versus how much it's actually worth at the current moment in Thor yield, basically. So you'd still be, even if they did remove it somehow, all you need to do is just say, oh, I put in 1 Bitcoin and 10,000 Rune. What is that worth today versus however much Bitcoin and Rune I have today in my LP? So you can always figure that out with like 4 different multiplication things. You can do it, I believe.
Yeah. I'm just lazy. I'm really lazy, and I can see my liquidity added number in Rune and whatever asset, and then I have to go back to the date and look up the price.
Fair. How's your LP been doing?
LPs are doing awesome. I hit the 100-day mark with my Atom Rune pool, and I took it out at 100 days, and then I couldn't put it back in. I was just immediately going to put it back in, and but I can't, and that's why I asked what's the status with the Atom stuff. And I did a Litecoin earn deposit, but those are not showing up in my on the interface when I'm connecting Keystore Trust Wallet.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll check in on that, and I'll hit you up.
I'm currently trying to do an Atom to Thor swap, and it has sent the Atom out of my wallet, but I don't think I've received the Thor yet. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I've got an open ticket. It's like a week old, so we're good.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know things were a little slow through the New Year's and stuff, but yeah, I'll check in on it for you and make sure it's being looked at. But I'm sure everything's all good and be taken care of.
They're looking at it. I've been interacting with. I can't remember who it was, but I was just giving you guys an update. So, thanks a lot.
Cool. C Ruggy. Hey. Or Avid.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me up.
Hey.
I've been interested in THORChain for a while. Tested out some what am I doing? An LP like 6 or 7 months ago now. So definitely have the loss protection in full effect. One of my questions is I noticed that with a recent change on the dashboard, there used to be kind of like ability to show asymmetric loss or your loss gains versus asymmetric and symmetric, and that's changed. I don't have my computer in front of me, but I noticed the other day I logged in to check it, and there was some modifications for the display. So just curious about that. I know for me it was kind of confusing because I think a lot of the technical loss is just based on when I entered the LP position, Bitcoin and Rune were at a much higher fiat range. So I guess the first question is there ability to kind of see that data somewhere, or is that completely gone? Like as far as the old display
on Thor yield?
Thor yield, correct.
Oh yeah. Thor yield is one of the THORswap products, so I think Chad might be able to shed some light.
I'm actually not too sure. I didn't realize that was taken away. If that's the case, I'll have to look at that and ask. The bull is usually the most on top of the Thor yield side. I don't know why that would be taken away. That's news to me if so, because that is pretty useful to be able to look at ASIM versus SIM, because obviously when you switch to SIM, that's where you kind of get like the fairest way of looking at it.
Yeah, let me pull it up. And I understand why. Like for me, it was very confusing. I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, why am I I understood that the fiat decline in both assets is probably a big part of the, you can see your entry value at entry or whatever in your current value. So let me pull it up. I'll stand by on hold if you want to talk to someone else, and I'll pop back in.
Yeah, sure. And the other thing with that is, like, now that we have savers, it's probably not recommended to do like asymmetric deposits into THORChain. You definitely can, but it's almost always more advantageous to just deposit both. Like for example, in Terra's case, when that pool had to be completely removed, there was that deposited both Rune and Luna were able to get their rune back, or there might be other scenarios in which it might make more sense to deposit both, especially in the case of impermanent loss, where you might just be losing the only asset that you deposited, and then you can only withdraw that one asset because you single-sided deposited. So I would also maybe consider entering in symmetrically.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
at the time there was no ability to do kind of like what you have with savers, right? Like I had BTC. I'm like, I want to play around with this. I really like what you guys are doing with, ability to do cross-chain swaps. Like I fiddled around with it for a while. And so I really like it. I'm pretty much a BTC maxi. So, I'm like, I find it interesting to allow people kind of sovereignty to swap. And I kind of came to you guys through, what is it? Eric Voorhees' thing, Shapeshift, and he put out an article, and so I've been following you guys since he put out those tweets like two years ago or something. So I find it really interesting. So I pulled it up just to kind of get back to Chad. So right now, what I can see in my overview tab is realized growth and annual growth, and those are both in the green. And so there used to be, I can still, when I roll down to the LP details, I can still see like a summary tab kind of thing, and I have the ability to switch from sim to asim. But I know earlier, like 2 or 3 months ago, it would show it's in the red significantly, and that's not due to Thor yield or THORChain or that's just due to the fiat decline. But now everything shows green is kind of, I don't want to say it's my gripe, but you understand what I'm saying.
So the reason why I think this is I believe that the LP realized growth on the top is actually tracking Luvi, which would make sense if you did a symmetric deposit. But let's say, for example, I have a ETH asymmetric deposit just to test it out that I deposited a long time ago. In which case I deposited only ETH and deposited no rune, so it's an asymmetric add of ETH. And in this case, I lost a small amount of ETH. That's the only thing I deposited. So like in real terms, I lost about 10% of my ETH deposit. In network terms, I gained about 15 rune and lost about 0.01 ETH, right? But the actual LP value increased, but the value of the ETH that I put into that pool in relation to the rune that I put in the pool decreased significantly due to impermanent loss. So like if I go to switch it to the asim version, you can see that in more real terms where I gained this amount of rune, I lost this amount of ETH. But if you look at it in the symmetric terms, it just looks like you lost that ETH, and that's just because of impermanent. That's impermanent loss right there, basically.
Gotcha.
So that's why it looks like it grew, even though it's because you deposited asymmetrically. But then you're looking at basically like what is the total growth of the pool. So like I think if you were to do the math, it would probably, like if you really did deposit both when you started, you'd probably be up somewhere around that amount. But because it's asymmetric, it's just not the case.
Okay. The last question I have is on so I have loss protection. And I see, like it says here, like the block rewards and the fee earn. And so one of the questions I had was on the withdraw fee amount. I know when I was swapping in and out of, let's say, like if I was like sending some BTC and getting rune, like I was getting a very favorable exchange rate as far as like, it wasn't taking like a significant percentage. I was getting pretty close to like equal value in and out of the transaction. And so my question is, at the bottom on the withdraw fee, it shows like rune is 0.060. So it's a pretty small amount there, like what, 60 cents or 70 cents or something. And then the BTC withdraw fee is 0.001. So my question is that just a rounding error, or would it truly be, because there's only 3 decimal places there. It's just showing 1, but maybe it'll be
Yeah, I don't think
less.
it's actually that much. I
Right.
don't
So
think
it's probably
actually
just a
that
rounding
much.
thing. Cool.
Well, wait,
Thanks,
couldn't
man.
it also just be the gas to get the BTC out? I mean, because you do have
It's
to
not
pay.
0.001
Yeah,
BTC
that's
though.
high.
Yeah,
That's really
that was
high.
my
Right. Yeah.
concern is like the BTC
It's like 50
transaction
bucks.
fees on chain are very low. And so I was like, damn, like
Right.
that's steep. And it seemed to me like it was a rounding thing because like I said, swapping in and out of, different things with THORswap, it's really good. Like it's not like some exchanges where they gouge you, and they charge you an enormous withdrawal fee. So I was just curious. It seems like a rounding thing because there's only 2 decimal places. So that would be, I guess, I don't want to suggest anything, but that would be a great change would be to like increase those decimal places so there's not confusion around that fee appearing higher than it probably will be.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, just again, by the way, THORyield is run by THORswap. So you can always, like, if you're ever stuck with some issue or something seems wrong, you can open THORswap support tickets in the THORswap Discord about THORyield as well. And you'll get connected to somebody to help with that. Also, just want to say I love what you're saying about mostly being a BTC maxi and Eric Voorhees. Over the holidays, I had like a long drive, and I just like ended up binging like 3 or 4 Eric Voorhees interviews on YouTube. Like I just like couldn't get enough of it. I had listened to most of them before, but man, I just love listening to Eric Voorhees. So yeah, you need to help us rune pill your BTC maxi friends, because that's exactly how we all feel. Like there is a logical. Like Rune is very close to BTC in that wheel, and in that way, like it's less of a stretch, and I think a lot of BTC maxis really should be able to appreciate the value that THORChain is adding to Bitcoin. Like it's allowing trust minimized swaps to other chains. I mean, I guess if they think everything else is a shitcoin, then that there's that. But so much of the Bitcoin world relies on centralized infrastructure, and to bring decentralized infrastructure to Bitcoin, to bring yield options, even if you don't use yield, just the swaps alone, huge value. So I'm definitely hopeful that more maxis can appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I think maxis are generally considered one group, but there's totally a spectrum. Like I'm a maxi because I got into Bitcoin around 2017. And I saw like a bunch of the other coins I, bought just go to like crap. And a lot of them I mean, let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff in this space that's just vaporware, and, empty promises. And so for me, maxi for me means like, I just, I understand long-term, like how things work. You can have these other coins that run up, but that doesn't mean, it's like looking at a penny stock. It's like, you're not going to put your 401k in a penny stock just because a couple of them popped. So for me, it's like, even though I am a BTC maxi, I still think that doesn't mean that there's nothing else that may have utility or nothing else that's interesting. I personally don't choose to put a significant portion of any of my funds in these other things just because I don't want to take that risk. But I find a lot of utility, like you were saying, in what you guys are building for, even if I'm not interested in the yield, which I'm just playing around with it because I think that it's interesting and I wanted to, put some money in the game and see how it works. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks for having me up. And yeah, I mean, I think that Rune does come up a couple of times in different spaces. We talk about it as not we, as in like it's one group, because, again, there's some people that are completely everything else is a shitcoin. USD is a shitcoin. 100% of my money is in Bitcoin. And then there's other people that are, more reasonable. And it just, everyone's got their own views. And so I know Rune has come up several times as far as like interesting projects and what you guys are offering for freedom, really, because that's what Bitcoin's about, is about freedom, right? Uncensorable transactions. And with everything that's happened with FTX and, all these draconian like KYC things, it's like, dude, I try and get like people into Bitcoin and they go to get on an exchange and they're getting like, oh, I got rejected. Why? Like my driver's license, this and that. And it's like, this is not like, that's not what crypto's about. Crypto's about freedom. And you guys, Thor having this, protocol that allows people to swap in and out freely that's what's needed, man. Like less trust and more trustless. So I appreciate you having me up. Good luck. And I'll drop down to the listeners and just listen in.
Yeah, thanks for your input. Preach it. We love it. Yeah, same page. If you ever know of one of these spaces that's happening where Rune might not just be laughed out as a shitcoin and they actually want to have a discussion, hit any of us up. Anyone on Nine Realms, myself, Chad B. Somebody would be happy to jump on and chat, I'm sure. So that's definitely what we want to do, is immerse ourselves in these other ecosystems.
Thanks, gents. Happy Friday.
Thanks. Or just tag THORChain. Someone will see it, and we'll make a showing. We've had some really great spaces externally recently. I don't know if any of you guys have been to them, but we've been doing a lot more like external AMAs and things like that. And I think that's something we also want to continue just going into 2023. I think we'll have some more good like AMA spaces and things like that, just to expand who we're talking to, and people that may have only slightly heard of THORChain.
Yeah, and as the momentum picks back up, we'll have to reinvigorate multi-chain live one of these days. And because that's really the fun stuff, is like explaining to new people. And I think that space that Pluto and Adonis that you guys did maybe like 10 days ago or whenever that was a really good example of that. Like, I loved listening to that. I think it was such a great starting point, and just an overview, from the ground up. And it's great when you're talking to people that don't really get it yet, not in an offensive way, just they don't know about THORChain yet, and you have to explain it from the ground up. And I feel like that's where the message really cuts through, and you get into like the really interesting things that excited all of us in the first place. And now we mostly kind of are in the weeds talking about like ADR 005 or whatever. But the exciting part is that it's just what it really stands for, what it does for the whole space, how it works is endlessly fascinating. So it's going to be fun to get to talk to new people over time.
We're going to be on, what is it, Monday, I guess? Is that the 9th? Yeah, Monday the 9th at what time? We'll tweet it out from the THORChain main account, but Adonis and I will be on Coin Whale Talks channel, which has 500,000 followers on Twitter. So that should be pretty cool. But yeah, it's always fun talking to folks in the space who haven't heard of THORChain. You guys are great. We love all of our regular listeners, but sometimes, it's just better to talk to people who have no idea what THORChain is.
For sure. We of course love all the regulars, and that's why we just go straight into the weeds. But yeah, I think we all want new faces too. And that's kind of what it's all about. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Sounds pretty big.
Yeah, Pluto. I'm talking with another one too. We'll iron all these out and get them all scheduled. I think there's bound to be like dozens of these groups that just do like these AMAs, and like obviously we don't pay for these or anything, and nor do we have any intention of doing that. So these are great, just like things just to meet, it's just another way to network and just like meet more people in this space, have more people understand like what it is that we're about, understand more of what other people are doing too, and how other people think about this product from their viewpoint, from a complete outside viewpoint, someone that's never used it, never heard of it, etc. I think that's one of the most interesting things. And one of the questions I wanted to ask the guy who was just up here was like, oh, well, you said you're a Bitcoin maxi. How did you find out about THORChain? And Eric. I mean, obviously, but that was the one thing that I wanted to know from him, is like how we found out about it. So here, Avid wants to come back up, so. Hey, Avid.
You were just asking, you wanted to follow up. Yeah, I mean, I heard Eric. Well, first I saw his tweet about THORChain, and I used Shapeshift back in 2017, 2018, and when it was like a website. And so I kind of followed up and did some digging, and to me, like this protocol is what has been missing in the space. Again, like having trust, like not trusting, and actually having something that's like decentralized and a protocol where it's not like going through a party like that. So I started looking into it and watching videos about it, and then just over time, like basically I think it was like December 2021 ish is when I like finally made the commit to try an LP, just so I could fiddle around with it. And before that I had bought some Rune, because that was another thing, is like there was no way as a US person for me to really like get access to Rune. It wasn't on Kraken at the time, and so I had like bought some, and I'm like, whoa, this is like really cool. I'm getting like really good favorable exchange rates, and I think it's important, even if you have conviction in something, to like question and steel man your own position. And so as a BTC maxi who's like, yeah, most everything else is a scam, like that doesn't mean I have to ignore it. Like looking into something and having an open mind is critical to being able to, grow and not just be a stagnant individual. So that's kind of how I found my way in. Was first thing I did some swaps, bought some Thor, and I just got more and more interested in the developments and stuff. I know there were some setbacks with things that happened in the past, but as with anything that's hard, like nothing's perfect, right? You're going to have some hiccups here and there along the way. So that's how I made my way in, man. And yeah, now just looking forward to trying a little savers and just experimenting around with it. It's not that I'm going to put a significant portion of my wealth into it, but like as things grow and become more solid and there's a history of good security and stuff, I think people's trust in it will grow, and I think it will explode in popularity. Hopefully this next cycle is going to be the cycle where THORChain gets kind of widespread exposure and adoption.
That's key there, not putting too much into it either. Like, I mean, it's easy to like obviously like we're confident in the security of THORChain and the economic viability of it, but it's still the early days, and it'll take many years for that trust and adoption to grow. Like it's going to take years of the first BTC savers to say like, hey, I've had my savers in here for 5 years and now I'm up 20% in BTC terms. Where's all the maxis at? I'm looking forward to those days when we see that come around. Bringing up Litecoin Underground. We'll just have this as the last speaker up here. Hey, how you doing, man?
Oh, sorry, I was switching on. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, so question for you guys. Litecoin recently added Mimblewimble last May. It's only on the core wallet right now. Do you guys run core nodes, or are you guys running like light clients?
Let me check for you real quick. I'm sure we're running the lightest version of whatever is possible, but let me just double check for you real quick. Yeah, I think we're running the full node, so I don't think it's a light client. I think it's the full node that has the full copy of the chain. And we're running 0.18.1 Litecoin daemon.
Okay.
Why? What would you like to see on the Litecoin side of things?
Yes, I mean, are you guys familiar with the Mimblewimble upgrade last year?
Yeah, somewhat. Is that what enables privacy?
Yeah, it's confidential transactions essentially, and so I know it's been it's something they're working on getting it on mobile, and I guess more than anything, like who would? Because I'm not a developer, but I could maybe try to connect somebody who could help out as far as getting that enabled, so that there'd be a way to move inside of Mimblewimble. Because essentially, what it is, it's an extension block. So these blocks are mined alongside your regular, I guess, transparent Litecoin chain.
Interesting.
And so, if you could keep everything in MWeb on THORChain,
yeah,
or even through the point of like you guys were willing to receive Mimblewimble coins and send from Mimblewimble out, that would be a huge advantage, because I don't think any centralized exchanges are going to do that. And so
it's like, so it's its own side chain, it looks like?
Yeah, it's not a side chain. Like Liquid is a side chain, right, for LBTC. It's actually, these are extension blocks that are mined. It's essentially inside the protocol. So there's no,
like SegWit sort of, right, where it's like a block kind of attached to the block.
Yep, exactly. And so what you do is you peg in and peg out. So you can, from a normal Litecoin wallet, you can send into an MWeb address. The big thing is that your wallet has to recognize the MWeb address as an MWeb address, or as like a legitimate address to send to. So if you guys are already running 18.1, it may work. Maybe I could try it out. I don't know if it's something that would.
What's like what were you trying what would you be trying to accomplish there? Like, would you want the actual transactions like be able to do a swap on THORChain like with Litecoin without actually having anyone see it? Or are you trying to because I mean I'm from what my understanding with like this type of privacy is that you could you could like swap through the doxed address and then like send with Mimblewimble and then no one else would be able to see that. But I don't know how we would be able to like actually integrate Mimblewimble into like I'm not sure what you're asking like for us to do,
Well,
basically.
I mean, step one would be just the ability to receive and send Mimblewimble transactions. So that because let's say today, if I have coins on the M website, if I want to send them to you and you aren't able to receive on MWeb, then what I have to do is
Right.
I have to peg out in my own wallet. I'll peg out into regular LTC, send it across as just regular LTC. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I think to be able to do it all inside the MWeb world would be great as far as sending and receiving. Because again, there's no like I guess whitelisting of those addresses then, right?
Yeah, I'm also curious how like it's just like some of the things with privacy with THORChain is like THORChain relies on being able to observe the transaction with like known finality. And I don't know how the our like the Bifrost would observe as I mean if it's its own vault, but then if
sender and receiver both see the transaction, just nobody else does.
Yeah. So nobody else sees it. So right. So like the actual vault is controlled by like the actual address that would be receiving the Litecoin is the Asgard vault, and so you'd actually need to like do some type of TSS ceremony just to like check the inbound, because you essentially need to prove cryptographic ownership or control of the receiving address to actually see the transaction. So it would require you to like, in order to like decode the transaction, you would have to do a threshold signature through TSS. So I think that could get pretty complicated. I'm curious to see how like privacy oriented forks of THORChain deal with it.
Yeah, do you guys? I don't know all the assets. Are you guys doing Zcash right now or no?
No, this time we're not doing any privacy coins. The node operators made it pretty clear, and our position has been that just like dabbling in the world of privacy coins exposes THORChain to an unnecessary amount of risk right now, and that the network is not sufficiently censorship resistant to withstand an attack from, say, the U.S. government. So, like, obviously, that's something we'll strive towards, but at this point in time, it would almost be a bit of a foot gun for us to try and do privacy coins, just because of whoever does it first. Like, it's just going to be an extremely attractive off ramp for like stolen and laundered funds, and so it's going to attract basically immediate scrutiny to whoever tries to do decentralized exchange with privacy coins. And I fully expect like the government to try to crack down on that through sending cease and desist letters to node operators directly via their ISP or to their hosting. So like it's just too much of a risk, in my opinion. I've argued vehemently this position that THORChain is not ready for that level of scrutiny. I still, my own opinions on like where I stand in terms of privacy coin are my own, but just from like purely, evaluating the risks to this network, like, I felt that it was necessary to speak up against adding privacy coins. And, it seemed like the node operators agree for the most part, but like a lot of the node operators also are very like privacy oriented and, are in this space like for that reason as well. So there, it's pretty evenly split right now. I'd say, it's like 50-50 want it, don't want it. And like, you need a 2/3 majority in order to enable it. So it's like, if it does get added, like it'll, I think it's going to take those, holdout node operators some more time and and confidence to determine that like the network is in a place where it can actually defend itself from attacks
Well, I think
like that.
I think a good first step would be, even if you just enabled the ability to withdraw to MWeb, like that your wallets would recognize MWeb addresses as legitimate Litecoin addresses. Because if your node is up to date, I think 18.1 is the one you needed, then it has the capability, and from your end, all you would do is you would be, kind of hands clean, be like, look, I just sent it to this address. I have no idea what is happening. Because if that were the case,
well, we have to have some idea of what's happening, right? Like the way our vaults and the way the slashing system and the way like the security model works is like all the nodes have to be able to actually know that they sent an outbound funds to an outbound address, and so or else they'll slash each other. So like if you need cryptographic, if you basically need to own the key in order to see that the transaction actually happened, then you need to do some sort of threshold signature, because no one node is going to be able to actually know that it received the transactions to that vault. It'll need to do some sort of like threshold signature. It's really interesting, like from a technical perspective, how we would do that. But I think that the lift would actually be quite high.
Well, I'll just explain how it works, because what an outbound transaction does is you do send on chain into that extension block. So that extension block is like a one lump sum address that gets mined in every single Litecoin block. And so as far as you would be concerned, THORChain's just sending a transaction to that block. But inside MWeb, it would end up going to the recipient inside of MWeb. So
yeah, but what I'm saying is that like the way THORChain works, like we have to be able to see and every node has to be able to confirm that the transaction happened the way that we said it did, right? Like everyone has to observe that transaction was actually sent to that address and that person received their funds. And the only way to do that is if you actually control the address, and no one node can actually control the Litecoin vault address to be able to do the basically it's like trying to see through a one-way mirror, right? You have to have the key in order to see through it, but and make that observation and then post that back to the chain. So I think it's kind of fundamentally at odds with the design of THORChain to be able to do something where the person that's receiving the fund, i.e. like the Asgard vault, which is what where all the funds get stored, no one node would have the ability to see privacy transactions into that vault. I could be completely wrong. That's just my like my take on what would be like I think some pretty heavy lifting would be necessary to do that.
Okay.
For a deposit, I think, but I think for like a outbound, like if someone makes a Bitcoin to Litecoin swap, I mean, all THORChain would need to do is send it to this Mimblewimble address.
But everyone
right?
has to observe that they actually sent it. Everyone independently has to observe that and post that back to the chain, or else we slash them for not sending from the vault. And in order to see the transaction go into the chain, you have to control the key to the vault, which no one node does.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'll do?
Right.
I'll talk to, I mean, right now, like I said, they're working on getting it on mobile. David Burkett, the developer of MWeb, I don't know. Maybe if you had somebody I could put him in touch with, if you guys had any interest in trying to make it work. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate, but I know that he's very committed to this thing. He's been working on it for 2+ years. And it's a pretty awesome tech, and I'd love to see it on THORChain for sure.
I mean, if you'd like to connect us, I'm sure people would love to talk with him. Who knows what could come out of that conversation? But if you want to send anyone our way, then I would DM Pluto or Nine Realms.
Okay, cool. I'll do that. Right. I'll follow you guys. And I do a spaces every Wednesday night. If you guys want to come in, I'd love to have the Thor clan in.
Yeah, we'd love to.
So just mostly Litecoin, but we talk everything. So we're pretty.
Sweet.
We're not maxies at all.
Yeah, so. I know. I've been meaning to come by. I DM'd you a while ago about coming through, but I will definitely try and make it out soon to some of these spaces.
Yeah, you'll find. See, I get a lot of Monero folks, and I don't think they're the ones mad at you guys because of this privacy stuff, right?
Yep.
Are they? Are they?
I think they're just like disappointed because they were all pretty hyped up. I know like the Cake Wallet guys were talking about trying to do some integration with you guys, and I think it's and I kind of understand both your guys' perspectives. I mean, survival's the number one thing, and
Like literally the first person to the first person to offer decentralized like trade from Bitcoin to Monero is going to get absolutely fucked by like the U.S. government, and it's without a doubt because right now like they're like you can see what happens like Ren BTC is being used by fucking Sam Bankman-Fried to like launder his money in real time while he's out on bail. They're gonna fucking realize that, and then they're gonna just totally fuck Ren BTC. Like as people as these like these cases like start to come to litigation and people start going to jail for like stealing and using stolen funds, they're gonna pay attention to like where those are being laundered, and anyone that facilitates it is just going to get fucked. Like that's just I just don't I don't see how you can really avoid that
does Change Now do it right now? Doesn't Change Now?
You still got to send your ID though, like when you use those services.
I use because if you go on
look
Cake
at what
Wallet,
happened to the Tornado Cash developer. He's still sitting in prison right now. He just developed a protocol.
What I'm saying, Cake Wallet, in Cake Wallet, you can swap between Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Monero, and I'm not putting any ID in for that stuff.
Are you serious?
I think Change Now is who backs them up. I think.
Is there like there must be like limits on that then, to where it's like it doesn't make sense to try to launder through it.
Maybe, yeah, it may be a certain dollar amount a day. When I've done it, I've just screwed around with it.
Hey, don't reveal your size like that.
No, I'm not. I'm not that. I'm not a whale. I'm just a Litecoiner. Not yet. So, well, anyway, I mean, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to have you guys in. I just know that they were, at least from what I understood, they were working on some things with you guys, and you guys pumped the brakes because of the Monero stuff. And again, I understand it, and I'm always a fan of people that are cautious and survive as opposed to, get bold and get wrecked, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like what we're providing to the crypto space is already like extremely useful and necessary, like to where I just don't see like the risk reward of like even like why would the node operators and like all the LPs and everyone who's like put money into THORChain, like why would they keep it in there if all of a sudden there was like this giant existential threat? Like I would pull my money if THORChain adopted privacy coins, to be completely honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm not trying to lose my money. I'm not trying to have my money seized.
I'm the Bitcoiner who was talking earlier, and for me, it's like I understand what you're saying, Litecoin guy. I just like for me having the community having the ability to swap between BTC and ETH or BTC and Litecoin or name your favorite token without having to like go through like this huge rigmarole with like your address doesn't match this and that and like all the bullshit. Like crypto is supposed to be about freedom, right? And so like while I agree with you long term, I think everything that the devs here are saying is like it's 100% legit, because right now it's so early that it's not worth the risk, man, because just being able to swap BTC to ETH or Litecoin to BTC, like that's in a decentralized protocol, like that to me is so valuable. It can't be risked for, some corner case thing that it just has such a high risk and a low reward.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, essentially, if everything's non KYC, a lot of these coins become privacy coins, right?
Potentially.
Like Bitcoin's very much private if no one ever reveals who they are. Pseudonymous. So it's, similar. It's just more of how the purview of the government, right?
I think, yeah, and I think the government's just gonna like look at like, okay, where is the fiat going? Like where is the crypto, off ramping into fiat in different countries? And like if they're just like, oh, there's a bunch of like fiat going to these like random places, and the trail goes cold, like that's gonna just raise alarm bells and stuff for them. So I don't I don't know. This is a really really tough discussion. I don't think that there's a correct answer yet. And I think that the goal is just like buy time and see how, the landscape plays out, and
Right.
keep an eye, just sometimes like the best action is just to like not do anything.
Yeah, no, I appreciate.
Yep.
I trust me, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's probably super valuable for a lot of people. And I do think these centralized exchanges are going to be gone. I don't see how they survive. Maybe a few of them here and there, but for the most part, people should be avoiding those places. But all right, well, I got to run. But yeah, Wednesday nights, 9:00. Follow me, Twitter Spaces. I'll invite you again.
Thanks, guys.
Nice. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much. We'll definitely be out. Let's go to Crypto Sailor. Sorry, I left you up there, and then we'll go to the Shapeshift guy who just left the stage for some reason. Oh, there he is. Hey, Crypto Sailor.
Hey, what's up? How y'all doing? I hope it's a good night for y'all.
Yeah.
I had a couple comments. I really appreciate what the THORChain project is doing. I think you get a lot of positive vibes here. Maybe it's a little bit of an echo chamber, but I know around the whole entire crypto space, people are really open to this. I think one of the things I hear a lot of people talking about, maybe you're maxi in some certain position or something like that. I think one thing that's not maybe discussed as much by devs or people in the project is, I think, what THORChain does with its modified state consensus, which is not the basic Tendermint simple delegated proof of stake like Cosmos Hub is doing. There's a lot more wrinkles to it than that, and I think it actually addresses a lot of the issues that, let's say, proof of work maxis have with proof of stake. And I think from what I've had some conversations with several people, Chad and JP and stuff like this back in the day, and from what I gather, I think the original core devs were looking to address a lot of those concerns because they were coming from the proof of work side, and they saw problems with the simple delegated proof of stake. What is it, in your opinion, that makes the proof of stake unique and addresses the issues that proof of work people have with proof of stake?
I think it's our churn mechanism and the way that like the actual asset being bonded in creates the security. So it's just like the incentive is always going to be to like bond as much as you possibly can, and the oldest nodes are always getting churned out. So we're constantly doing, basically like we're holding that auction. Essentially, it's a auction to become a node operator every 3 days. So we did like you said, we did a lot of changes, like we don't have delegation, and we do the churn. It's basically like a public, almost like security auction. All those things were thought out well in advance of the core team in looking at. They were almost able to predict, like, it's kind of crazy, like the foresight that they had to be able to predict what the problems would be of delegated proof of stake systems. And before they were even really like prominent, they kind of were just like, well, this is what everyone's talking about right now doing, with Tendermint and all that. But like, they were the core team really sat down and were like, is this actually going to work, like from a tokenomics perspective? And so they designed Rune really to be like, actually have utility. So that's, I don't know if that addresses your question. I'm not exactly sure on the parallels between proof of work and proof of stake in this context, but I think
that's a really good way of putting it initially. I'm also doing a lot. You might notice my channel on Twitter is heavy THORChain oriented. I focus on what I call tech alpha, so I'm only looking at disruptive tech, and THORChain is absolutely disruptive, as I think we've heard said. Also, there's people talking about interfaces and things like this. Also, I had a question. I'm looking to get a little bit more engaged with the community. So anybody, please feel free to follow me and hit me up if you want to get more engaged on some of the marketing and communication side. I know there's a couple DAOs that I tried to get started, but I also had a question about it's been kind of discussed off and on, and that's like a community run or a community DAO as a validator node. And I was wondering if TSS signing routines could be used on THORChain itself to do decentralized governance over bonded rune and rewards that you would need to post for a validator node.
Yeah, that would be super interesting. I think I know what you're talking about there. So basically, like, that you start to get into like delegated proof of stake there, but I really that's like that could be doable if we it would be interesting to have nodes that had an unlimited bond provider, unlimited number of bond providers, so that like when it's churned out every, I don't know how long it takes, like with there's 90 validators churning every 2.5 days, so like every 45 or maybe it's every 90 days, a node churns out basically, and like during that time as many people that wanted to could like bond to it. That would be pretty interesting. Although it would end up pushing the bond of that particular node extremely high, which then would not be counted towards the security because there is a bond hard cap of the highest, basically the highest amount of rune in the bottom 2/3 of bonds is the effective bond hard cap to contribute to security, so that you don't have an issue with nodes that are essentially like having, one team that basically has like 60 million rune bonded to a node or whatever. So I'm just trying to think, I personally, I'm in favor of like community run validators. I don't think that there's anything you can do to stop that from happening. And earlier on in the call, I kind of alluded to the fact that like I want to see more institutions and organizations, forming stronger bonds and running their own nodes on THORChain. So I think that that's just, there's going to be some level of like of trust, the same way that there's a level of trust between Nine Realms is node clients and and us as their infrastructure provider. That like that's just going to happen. I think that to say that that's not going to that is possible to prevent that, or that we shouldn't let that happen, is just like kind of ignoring the just market dynamics and cause and
Yeah,
effect.
and I think my idea was to do governance off chain so that there wouldn't be any chance of like reverting to some kind of like delegated proof of stake in the protocol. So run the governance exterior, but operate the pool node address to whatever is being posted for security and whatever is being distributed for rewards. Do that through TSS and do the governance for that TSS off of THORChain itself on a different chain or on a separate chain.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Something to think about. I mean, you still run into issues with like whoever's running the infrastructure on the primary network, that they are essentially the ones that are in control. But I would love to see whoever solves whoever does like a community validator. I would only support it if it had if they had some way of doing like if they had some way of doing like provable on-chain delegated voting, so like the actual people like who have staked into that node are the ones that have a say in like what the especially for like these node votes and stuff, that they would kind of be conducting their own vote within that node, and then that node would only do what the majority of the stakers
Yeah, exactly. And
that
that
kind
could
of
be
thing would be
done
really
through
cool.
TSS, right?
Well, it could also just be done like on chain, on THORChain itself natively via some extension. Like we'll have to like take a look at and see what that is. But yeah, anyone who's interested in like building that, yeah, reach out for sure. I mean, it's not going to be a priority for us for the at least like in this quarter. We have a lot going on, but I can imagine spending engineering cycles to try to figure something out that I think will ultimately lead to more decentralization, because it just means there's more people involved in the decision making of the network.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Thanks for answering those questions. One final statement. I know people were talking about ASIM LP, but real Thor Chads always do ASIM LP through Rune.
No, why would you do that? Then you're selling Rune.
Yeah.
Then you're selling Rune. But also like GG to the
Yeah,
guy
but you
who
can't earn anything on it otherwise.
What?
You can't earn anything on it otherwise.
Oh, he's saying that only a real big, only it's a joke. Only someone who's a real THORchain maxi would. If you're a real THORchain maxi, you would only ASIM deposit rune because then that's the only thing that you could possibly hope to gain in a ASIM deposit scenario. That's the joke. I just over-explained it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah, we
guys.
got to work on that. We got to work on that.
Thanks, bro. All right.
Let's
Lastly,
wrap it.
DeFi Cafe. Hey.
All right, I gotta
sorry.
run.
You can run. All right.
All right,
See you, Pluto.
later, guys.
Thanks.
What's up, mate? I just want to say hi from Shapeshift, and kind of bring that conversation a little bit back to the privacy thing. I'm guessing that's why the Haven integration was either kind of abandoned or kind of went cold, or was that like intentional, or just that kind of fell by the wayside?
No, it's actually like people are still working on it. It's just very takes a lot of time to figure this stuff out. It is definitely not done. Like it is still in progress. So I believe it is actively being worked on, but I can't verify that. I've just been people have told me that they're actively working on it. So whether that's true or not, for someone else to determine.
For sure, that's super cool. So no idea of a rough ETA or anything like that.
No, and I would expect to see. I would almost expect to see it on like a fork of THORChain before THORChain itself, like Maya or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where it's being actively developed, but if it's being developed for one of these, it's kind of like being developed for all. So it is currently being worked on in some shape or form by somebody, and who exactly it is a good question. I don't actually know who, but no one at Nine Realms is what I'm trying to say. So. Nine Realms not currently working on it, but I believe someone on the core team is currently working on, some of the other things like Monero and things like that.
There's definitely work being done on Monero on Black. I don't know a whole lot about that, and there's not a whole lot out there, but that's a rabbit hole that people can potentially dig into a little bit. Black node.
Yeah, I think that's where the Haven work is, or maybe that's kind of all together. The Monero work is the Haven work, I believe. So I think that it's still actively in progress, and it's probably being done there rather than in like the THORChain repos. So if you're like looking to check up on the progress of that, I would check there, and then once it's developed there, then it can be put into THORChain if it comes to that.
Sweet.
Yeah, but really as far as I know, that's the process.
Yeah, cool
progress. Yeah.
We're actively working on savers as well, so expect to see more volume coming from our side soon.
Yeah, Shapeshift right now, number 3 on the affiliate tracker list of like who is sending the most like swap volume in and out of THORChain. So like I know I've spoken a lot with your guys' team, and you guys are building that Savers edition right now, and obviously like doing regular cross-chain swaps. So just a huge shout out to the Shapeshift team and everything that they're building, and everything that we're gonna be doing with you guys in the future. So it's a match made in heaven right here.
Totally. You guys are pretty much one of the major reasons that we were able to become a DAO in the first place. Like we shut down our kind of, being a counterparty with the market exchange because, the tech caught up, like THORChain existed, like a combination of like you guys plus 0x pretty much got, the same product in a decentralized way. So just love to see it. It really is a match made in heaven. One last question for you guys. The raise the caps, like hashtag that the kind of THORChain community was pushing so loudly, I guess back 21-ish when swaps are in ChaosNet. Do you guys have the equivalent for savers, or like because the caps get hit pretty quickly after they get raised? Are you planning to do the same kind of campaign?
Probably not, and we're just very cautious about savers and ramping up into this, and there really doesn't need to be as many cap raises. So like the limitation here is the synthetic asset utilization ratio, which we don't want to be over 50% of the pool depth. And so right now the maximum it can be is up to 30%, and that's still not full. And I think there's still discussions going on whether we should raise it right away once we get to 30 on Bitcoin, or whether we should wait until other pools start to catch up. I think it's still being determined, but there really is only one more cap raise that we can do, and that's to go up to 50%. Once it's at 50%, That's the maximum that I think a lot of us agree that we should go to. We shouldn't go above 50%, and that's also when POL gets turned on, which is what maintains it at 50% as Savers still scale. So, yeah, I mean, do you need to go? You want me to go into like POL at all, or like how that kind of affects
Yeah,
the caps there?
totally. I mean, whatever people want to hear.
Yeah, sure. So, protocol owned liquidity is the protocol reserve adding Rune into the pools, and the goal of POL is to maintain that synth asset utilization ratio. So, let's say the synth asset utilization is right at 50%. It's right on the mark, where basically like half the pool is synthetic asset liability, and then a whale deposits 50 BTC, and all of a sudden that synth utilization shoots up to 55% or something like that, right? The protocol will recognize that the synth utilization is over what its goal is. Its goal being about 50%, and it adds Rune into the pools. It becomes a liquidity provider into the network, and it adds enough liquidity to drop down the synth utilization back to 50%. So the POL is just adding liquidity into the network to maintain the synth utilization always 50%. So it's basically a dynamic system that when liquidity is added, it adds liquidity to maintain that. And then when liquidity is removed, it also removes liquidity to help maintain the synthetic asset utilization ratio. So the POL is really, that's really the raise the caps in this sense. It will just continually raise the caps just by adding more liquidity to the network over time. So POL is really what's going to make this thing scale. And I would look forward to seeing that probably this month, I would hope.
That's awesome. Really appreciate that explanation as well. So since kind of threshold is at what, 30% now you said, and you can go up to a max of 50 safely. So like we're looking at maybe 60% increase on the like total savers, like TVL, I guess.
As a ratio of the current liquidity, yes. But
sure.
yes. You can think of it that way, sure.
Assuming liquidity is constant, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yep. And then as people just keep depositing savers, that just means the protocol just adds more and more liquidity and just keeps scaling it up. Yeah, that's why like we're really excited for POL. It's just going to be this really cool, it's just a very dynamic system that reacts when more liquidity is added. It adds more liquidity and keeps the caps going. When people are removing liquidity, it says, "Oh, well, this isn't needed anymore. Let's take some of this out and give the yield back to the regular LPs." So that's what's really going to take this thing to the next level and make it so we scale savers up to is that 10 million today, 100 million, and a billion years from now. We'll see.
Sure. Is there any ever going to be like the ability to do savers for like non-native assets, I guess, so like ERC20s, like a USDC saver vault?
Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's not on the table. And the reason for that is just the liability, because anyone could mint, random synth ERC20, and you could really mess around with with the economics on, especially with, wrecking LP. Like there's some weird things you can do with some of these ERC20s, and, opening that up to the smaller liquidity tokens, is definitely not in the interest of the network. I think maybe it could go into stable coins one day, but even stable coins, I would say, is it's risky, because when it's savers essentially, or not savers, synthetic assets, as that utilization ratio increases, it increases the amount of leverage on liquidity providers, and it means that when Rune goes down, basically, it takes away from the regular liquidity providers of the network, and gives it to the synths to make sure they're always backed. So that's what the major risk is for stable coins and other ERC20s. I would very much doubt it. I don't think there's even really demand for it at scale. So I would really doubt we see something like that. I mean, people are moving more towards the direction of no ERC20s and etc. on THORChain at all. So I think
Yeah,
that's
that
kind of
totally
direction
makes
everything
sense.
starts moving. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like you guys are good at all the kind of like native layer one swap, right? Like the ERC stuff's cool, but separation of concerns and composability and all that. So I totally get that.
Yeah, and it's like what ERC20s do we really need to build up liquidity for, especially when the future of the short tail or the long tail is DEX aggregation, and that's just clear from the user experience standpoint. Like anyone that's used THORChain to swap to an ERC20 knows DEX aggregation is just 50 times better because you get just a little extra coins, and why would you not want that? So as long as liquidity exists in troves elsewhere, then I think DEX aggregation is the way to go. Do you guys have DEX aggregation on Shapeshift?
Not in the like multi-hop sense, right? We do like with the swapper, so we're aggregating through like CowSwap, 0x, and THORChain, just kind of 1-1 swaps. Osmosis is coming soon, but it's kind of similar to like what DeFi Llama is doing recently with just pick the best rate if we're able to route a trade through multiple assets, but multiple like trade routes or swappers, but not doing the multi-hop bridge type thing.
Cool. Well, hopefully we can see some THORChain aggregated transactions in there sometime soon. It would be super, super cool to go cross-chain long tail.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we could do for sure. Just bundle it all up in the same transaction.
Yeah, exactly. Sweet, guys. Any closing thoughts?
I think it was a great space. Yeah, I'm good to hop off. It's been a while.
Yeah, we did do 2.5 hours. Good call. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Yeah, I guess we'll see you next Friday.
Cool. See you guys.
Bye-bye.